sorry, I'm having a very bad sore throat. I just hope I'm audible to all of you. Okay. First of all, I thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to talk on the centenary celebrations. We'll be talking on efficacy of micronutrient fortified rice in school children. These results are the other results of a study that we have very recently completed in the Rangareddy district. As we all know, the magnitude of hidden hunger is really high all over the globe, mostly in the sub-Saharan Africa as well as Southeast Asia, and even in India the magnitude of hidden hunger is alarmingly high. This is from the Global Burden of Disease data set, and they have also identified that the disability adjusted life years is really high, and it is more than 1,000 if you come to the Indian context. And even the years living with disability due to anemia is really high in the Indian subcontinent. Coming to the country-specific data, NFHS has identified pockets which are that the young children are anemic, and unfortunately NFHS doesn't have information on the school-age children. The other data set which actually collects information on school-age children is the DLHS, and the most recent DLHS survey has identified that more than 50% of the children and adolescents of the school-going age are anemic. Way back in 1993, National Nutrition Policy has identified food fortification as a public health measure to increase the intake of micronutrients. And more recently, the Food Standards and Safety Authority of India have come out with guidelines for fortification of 5 major staple foods, which are wheat flour, salt, vegetable oils, milk, and rice. And rice fortification, the mandatory nutrients that needs to be incorporated are iron, folic acid, and B12. So there have been almost more than 3 studies in the Indian subcontinent that have focused on micronutrient fortified rice. One was done by our own institute, where we have identified that delivering iron through fortified rice, we managed to improve the body iron stores, but however we did not find an effective intervention on the hemoglobin status of the children. Hemoglobin improved in both the control and the fortified rice. There was another study conducted in Bangalore by SGRI where similar results were found. Here also the body iron stores improved significantly, while there was no effect on the hemoglobin status of the school children. Now this was another study conducted by NIN, the Growth Smart study, where they have delivered multiple micronutrients to preschool children. They had delivered a cocktail of almost 7 micronutrients, and here they have for the first time showed that the effect of multiple micronutrients was very high in reducing the prevalence of anemia in preschool children as well as iron deficiency. So does multiple micronutrients along with iron may have a better impact on hemoglobin? Well, folic acid and vitamin B12 are hematinic nutrients, we all know that. So considering the very high prevalence of B12 and folic acid deficiencies in our country, probably supplementing them along with iron may have a more impact on hemoglobin and thereby reduce anemia. Now, as rice is a major staple in many parts of the country, fortification of rice with multiple micronutrients needs to be attempted and tested. So for this purpose, under an agreement with a local company in Tamil Nadu, we have extruded the rice grains fortified with iron, folic acid, and B12 with technical expertise from NIN, and retention and stability of the added micronutrients and bioavailability of iron from fortified rice were tested. In addition, we also conducted a double-blind randomized controlled trial in 6 to 16 year school children in the Rangareddy district of Telangana state, We have also received IAS approval and the tile is registered under CTRI. So we started off with the hypothesis that the consumption of fortified rice through school-based midday meal over a period of 8 months will reduce the prevalence of anemia and improve micronutrient status compared to the unfortified rice. So the objectives of the study were to develop fortified rice kernels with iron, folic acid and B12, to test the stability, retention and acceptability of the fortified rice, to study the efficacy of fortified rice in reducing anemia and improving micronutrient status, the primary outcome being reduction in prevalence of anemia, and the secondary outcomes we also wanted to look at their effects in improving iron, folic acid and B12 status, as well as improvement in nutritional status and morbidity in children. We were successful in developing the technology fortified rice with these 3 micronutrients. Figure in the leftmost part is the fortified rice kernels, and this was blended into the natural rice at a ratio of 1:100, and we have found absolutely visibly no differences between the fortified and unfortified rice after blending. And these are the levels of the micronutrients that are present in the fortified rice. They are in consonance with the FSSAI guidelines, except for iron, where we delivered a higher quantity because we wanted to show a proof of concept 1, as well as to also cover the dietary deficit gap. The retention and stability of the fortified rice during pre-processing, like washing as well as cooking, that is the watertight cooking, was really good. We also conducted sensory evaluation tests in both adults and children in a variety of recipes using the fortified rice, and we have seen that they were not able to distinguish between the fortified and unfortified rice, which means that acceptability is in par with the unfortified rice. Coming on to the efficacy trial, the sample size for the trial was around 630 children in each group, for a 10% reduction in anemia from 56%, which was observed in the state of Telangana as per the DHS survey, with 90% power and 20% hydration. For the process of fortification coding, we have brought the natural rice that is supplied through the PDS every fortnight to NIN, and this was divided into 2 parts, and the fortified rice was made by batch mixing 0.5 kgs of the premix with 49.5 kgs of natural rice to provide 12 milligrams of iron, 130 micrograms of folic acid and 1 microgram of B12 per 100 grams. So this would deliver around 12 milligrams for primary school children and 18 milligrams for the high school children, because the provision on the MDM is different for these 2 groups. I'm sorry the slide is very busy, but this is how we have is the process flow chart of the efficacy trial. We had screened the children from 4 government schools, 2 primary and 2 high schools, after obtaining a written consent from the parents as well as assent from the children. We have used these inclusion criteria to include the children, to assess the eligibility of the children in the study. So they were randomized into 2 groups, the experimental and the control group, and the children with severe anemia were actually subjected to more further diagnosis, and the study physician in the group has rendered the treatment for these severely anemic children. And the children who were severely undernutrition, they were provided with dietary counseling and referred to the hospital for further treatment. As far as the intervention goes, the children were identified with the color-coded ID cards. They were dewormed twice during the study period, once at baseline and one after 4 months of intervention. And the fortified and unfortified rice were prepared in the MDN kitchen simultaneously using uniform procedures. And the existing rotational menu that is present in the MDM program in the state have been used. The project staff had overseen the feeding daily, and that means the feeding was done under strict supervision, and the unannounced supervisory visits were also done to measure compliance. Coming to investigations, the baseline socioeconomic and demographic information were collected, Anthropometry was measured both at baseline at the end and at the end of 8 months. The MDM intakes were assessed at baseline, and once every month the micronutrient status in the meal samples were measured monthly, and the micronutrient status including hemoglobin was measured at baseline and endline. The incidence and duration of morbidity was assessed weekly. We also have information on the home diets, and the children with anemia at the end line were also referred to the hospital for further diagnosis and treatment. So this is another, I'm just telling about the compliance at the different stages. At the end of the study, we had almost 584 students in the unfortified groups and 592 students in the fortified group who have completed study, which gives almost 92 to 94% of compliance with treatment. So these are the baseline characteristics of the study population. The baseline characteristic for all the demographic, the anthropometric, as well as the biochemical parameters are similar between the two groups, except for vitamin B12, which was slightly lower in the fortified group at baseline. These are the intakes of rice and micronutrients from the MDM meal. The compliance as per the guidelines of MDM was excellent. We had almost 96 grams of rice being consumed by the primary school children and around 145 to 146 grams of rice consumed by the high school children. And the total number of feeding days that we have obtained was around 166 out of a total of 188 functional feeding days. And the compliance between the fortified group and the unfortified group was similar. So these are the effects of intervention on the distribution of anemia at baseline and endline. At baseline, if you see, the distribution was absolutely similar between the two groups, and when it comes at the end of the survey, you have seen a significant shift towards the right, and the shift towards the right was more significant in the fortified group compared to the unfortified group, though the unfortified group also improved anemia status at the end of the intervention. Coming to the change scores in mean change of the hemoglobin and iron status markers, you see that the change in hemoglobin was improved in both the groups, but the magnitude of increase was higher in the fortified group compared to the unfortified group. Coming to folic acid and B12 status, they improved significantly in the fortified group, whereas if you see in unfortified groups, they have in fact decreased, and the decrease was more evident in vitamin B12 compared to folic acid. And this coming to prevalence of anemia, iron deficiency anemia in response to treatment. Yet again here we see that the prevalence of anemia decreased in both groups, with the quantum of decrease being higher in the fortified group compared to the unfortified group. Similar results are also seen with respect to iron deficiency and iron deficiency anemia. But again, if here you see, you still have almost 20% of the anemia which is not explained by iron deficiency. Coming to folic acid deficiency also improved in the fortified group, but in fact worsened in the unfortified group. We also looked at effects of supplementation of morbidity in school children. Overall, though we see a trend of decrease in the fortified group in prevalence of morbidity, however, this trend was not significant. As we're collecting weekly morbidity, we also tried to look at data. How does it change over 8 months? If you see, almost after 3 months of supplementation, you see a decreasing trend in the prevalence of morbidity, both in the fortified as well as the unfortified groups. But however, these were not significant. Coming to the, we have done some linear mixed model analysis for seeing the effect of intervention on hemoglobin and micronutrient status, and this was adjusted for age, gender, and baseline characteristics. And we have also wanted to see the effects of time and group interactions. If you see over here in the fortified group, hemoglobin increased by almost 0.18 grams, and this was a significant increase. Body iron stores increased by a larger extent with almost 3.4 micrograms increase in the fortified group. Then we also conducted a GE model for logistic regression analysis to see the efficacy of supplementation on the prevalence of anemia and the different types of anemia. Here also we see that there is an improvement in the fortified group with respect to decrease in anemia, iron deficiency, and iron deficiency anemia. Therefore, to summarize, the fortified rice is indistinguishable from unfortified rice and is well accepted in adults and school children. The retention and stability of iron after washing and watertight cooking is really very high. The multiple micronutrient fortified rice significantly reduced anemia and improved micronutrient state. We also, in addition to the effect of intervention, we also feel that supervised MDM feeding and deworming may have improved anemia in the unfortified group. Large-scale effectiveness trials are wanted to demonstrate the feasibility of scale-up in government food security programs in the future. Thank you.
Very much for the very interesting presentation. May I ask the audience for some questions?
Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation and a fantastic study. Could I ask a point of clarification and then a question? So the clarification is, was it an individual randomized control trial or a cluster randomized control trial?
Yes, it was an individual randomization study.
So therefore my question is, are you concerned about how do you explain the reduction in anemia in the unfortified group, and is there a potential for contamination across trial arms?
So I don't think there was a potential contamination between the groups, because this was done under strict supervision of the project staff, because they were the ones who were there every day to monitor the feeding. We assume probably because of the supervised feeding, they were getting the actual amount that they need to get during a midday meal, and probably that would have improved anemia status. And also we did deworm the children both at baseline and after 4 months. So there are reports that deworming itself will improve anemia in children.
So thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, and also for the courage to come when you're not feeling well. I feel bad even asking you a question to make you speak more. But I guess I have actually multiple questions. But one is, could you elaborate maybe on thinking in terms of the cost effectiveness of this approach? So reading one food to kind of be like a multiple micronutrient supplement as compared to the cost of putting a little bit more research and development into fruits, vegetable pulses, animal source foods. And we have this circular argument all the time that diversification of diet is quite costly, but I guess I'm just trying to project to the future the fact that Lancet Global Burden of Disease, we know of the disease risk factors, so low intakes of fruits and vegetables, low intakes of pulses, low intakes of whole grains. So I'm just concerned about the trajectory of this generation of students being fed on rice, which is helping their anemia. It's a good thing, but how do we incorporate dietary diversity, and where do we get around the roadblock that is too expensive to consume a diverse diet when we now try and put so many micronutrients into one food? So what will the future implications be on diet habits for the children, and also development of non-communicable diseases, relying so much on one carbohydrate-based food? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. We would have loved to work out the cost-effective analysis, but unfortunately we didn't do. But actually the incremental cost from fortification is very, very, very minimal. It is just about 0.75 paise for one child. So that can be really easily absorbed by the programs as such. Regarding a dietary diversification with animal source foods or foods rich in micronutrients, or dietary diversification as a strategy to improve anemia, it would be good, but it would take a very, very, very long time, because we had managed to give those diversified foods in our program only under strict supervision. Once we phase out, we really know what what is the reality in the field.
It was a very good presentation, and I am happy to see that the study is completed in very short period of time. My question is, did you look at the effect in only in iron deficient children?
No, sir. This was in general. Not only in iron deficient children. This was in the all school children.
Was it any difference in the only iron deficient children in the control and the supplemented group? If you take only the iron deficient to start with.
No. We included.
No, you did not.
We only excluded children with severe anemia. Otherwise, all
the intervention. Did you try to look at the intervention effect in iron deficient children too at the baseline?
No, so we still have to do those sub-analysis. Right now, I don't have information.
The other question is, was there any improvement in the dietary diversification during your
yes, definitely with respect to
that could influence the bioavailability and improvement in the control group also.
So at least we made sure of whatever is recommended under the MDM program is met. But regarding the home diets, the dietary diversity remains same at baseline as well as endline. But there was a change in the MDM delivery as such.
Question and a very short answer.
Your iron parameters can be influenced by inflammation and infection. Did you exclude this?
Yes, we did measure CRP, and whatever values we have projected on ferritin are actually adjusted for infection.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the discussion.